In the world of hip-hop, beef isn't just music, it's war. But nobody saw this coming. Kendrick Lamar, the Compton lyricist known for precision and power, has reportedly called on the God MC himself, Rakim, to deliver what fans are already calling the final strike in his ongoing Cold War with Drake. The internet is on fire. Twitter threads are exploding, and even hip-hop veterans are stepping in to decode what this could mean for the culture. Could this be the moment that ends Drake's reign? Or is it a setup for the biggest retaliation in rap history? Either way, the game has changed and the world is watching. Brace yourself, because what's about to unfold could rewrite hip-hop history forever. Hashtag Kendrick Lamar. Hashtag Rakim. Hashtag Drake. Hashtag hip-hop news. Hashtag final strike. The streets of hip-hop are rarely quiet. But right now they feel like a ticking time bomb, ready to explode at any second. Ever since Kendrick Lamar reignited conversations about lyrical supremacy with his precision-cut verses and subtle subliminals. The culture has been on edge. The fans are restless, the blogs are eating, every rumor alive, and even the industry veterans are watching closely. Drake, one of the most commercially dominant artists of the past decade, has been on the defensive whether he's willing to admit it or not. For weeks, small ripples have been building. Cryptic lines and freestyles, mysterious posts, deleted minutes after going live, whispers of diss tracks being drafted in secret. Hip-hop Twitter has been dissecting every syllable, but no one expected what happened next. Kendrick didn't just double down, he rewrote the entire playbook. Late last night, a grainy, half-lit studio photo started circulating online. It wasn't posted from any official account. In fact, no one knows exactly where it originated, but the image was unmistakable. In the booth, headphones on, was Kendrick Lamar, and standing next to him, leaning in with that calm, iconic presence, was none other than Rakim Thagad, the God MC. It's the architect of modern lyrical technique, a man whose name is spoken with almost sacred reverence in hip-hop circles. The caption? Non-existent. No words. It's just silence, the kind of silence that shakes the room harder than any shout. Within minutes, the image went viral. Hashtag Kendrick Lamar, hashtag Rakim, hashtag Drake down started trending globally. Fans across the world immediately understood. This wasn't just a studio session. This was a signal, a final strike in motion. Industry insiders started calling it a cultural earthquake. The idea of Kendrick aligning with Rakim isn't just collaboration, it's symbolism at its purest, deadliest form. It's the merging of eras. It's the confirmation that old school mastery and new school dominance can stand shoulder to shoulder with a single, unified message. This is chess, not checkers. Bringing Rakim into a modern lyrical war sends one clear message: this isn't about radio play or streaming algorithms. This is about the soul of hip-hop, the roots, the respect, the artistry. But the question now shaking everyone to their core is, why now? What pushed Kendrick to make this move, and what role is Rakim truly playing in it? Multiple unverified leaks claim Drake has been quietly preparing something massive behind closed doors, a career ending, aimed squarely at Kendrick. Some say the track was nearly ready. Others claim it's still being perfected, but everyone agrees on one thing: Kendrick likely heard whispers of it. And if these reports are even partially true, Kendrick's sudden alliance with Rakim may not just be a collaboration. It might be a preemptive strike, neutralizing Drake's move before it even hits daylight. Fans have been in full detective mode. One user at LyricSniper23 pointed out that Kendrick's team liked, then unliked, a tweet that read, "Sometimes a student calls on the teacher when the fight requires legacy, not popularity." Another claimed that the studio in the leaked image matches a private facility in New York. known for housing major battle sessions and secret recording projects for top-tier artists. And then there's the deleted tweet from a known OVO insider. Just 3 words, "We weren't ready." Screenshots hit Reddit and hip-hop forums instantly, fueling every wild theory possible. Some believe Kendrick and Rakim are preparing a joint diss record, something designed not just to dismantle Drake's credibility, but to challenge the entire modern rap hierarchy. Others think the session is more symbolic, a passing of the torch, Rakim publicly anointing Kendrick as the modern god MC. Either way, the message is clear. The cultural tide is turning, and it's turning fast. Streaming platforms reported a sudden overnight spike in Rakim tracks paid in full. Eric B. is president. I ain't no joke, as younger fans scrambled to understand who Rakim is and why this matters. As at Rap Culture Daily put it, if you don't know Rakim, you don't understand what Kendrick just did. This isn't a chart battle anymore. Kendrick isn't aiming to beat Drake on monthly listeners or Billboard placements. He's aiming to cement something far more dangerous, a cultural hierarchy that places lyricism over popularity, substance over algorithms, and respect over spectacle. Bringing Rakim in says one thing with absolute clarity. Hip-hop has standards, and those standards have returned to collect. Meanwhile, Drake has been quiet. Too quiet. His usual playful jabs and IG captions have stopped. His camp hasn't released statements, nor have they teased new music since the image dropped. But insiders whisper that meetings have already been held at OVO HQ. The phrase "damage control" reportedly made its way into at least one internal conversation. Some sources claim Drake is rethinking his next move entirely, not out of fear, but out of respect for what this alignment represents. Because here's the thing, no matter how much money, how much streaming power, how much commercial leverage Drake holds, going toe-to-toe with a Kendrick-Rakim co-signed strike doesn't just risk a loss, it risks the historic one. This moment isn't about a single diss record. It's about legacy, lineage, and legitimacy. It's about what hip-hop values when the noise clears, when the charts fade, and when the conversations about who really did it are all that remain. The streets are watching. The fans are waiting. And the next move, whether it's a verse, a full song, a visual, or even a live performance, could reshape not only this beef, but the narrative of modern hip-hop entirely. One thing's for certain, this isn't the end. This is the quiet before the war becomes scripture. #hip-hop drama. #music industry news. #Kendrick vs Drake. #RAKIM returns. #legacy strike. #OVO number TDE #. The culture lives when dawn broke after that mysterious studio leak. The entire hip-hop ecosystem was already vibrating like a speaker turned all the way up. News outlets scrambled. Blogs refreshed every 5 minutes. Even mainstream media caught the scent of something much bigger than music. By 9 a.m., #Rakim and #Kendrick Lamar were simultaneously trending in over 12 countries. Radio hosts who normally avoid beef talk were now opening shows with wild speculation. What would a Kendrick and Rakim joint sound like? Would it be grim, surgical, and rooted in classic New York-style bars? Or would it carry Kendrick's West Coast cadences with Rakim's OG precision cutting through like a blade? In every corner of the internet, the culture was buzzing, not with empty gossip, but with reverence. Bars Over Beats tweeted, "We are witnessing history." This is like Jordan practicing with Kareem right before Game 7. Drake might be talented, but what do you do when legacy shows up at your doorstep? And that's what made this moment so terrifying for Drake's supporters. It wasn't just a potential diss track. It was the symbolism. Kendrick wasn't aligning with a peer. He was reaching up, pulling a god-tier influence directly into the fray, like a warrior summoning a mythical figure who defined the battlefield. Long before the current fighters ever showed up, industry whispers suggest this wasn't a sudden move. A source close to Top Dog Entertainment, who requested anonymity, claimed that Kendrick has been quietly meeting with select legends over the past few months. He's been talking to some of the architects, the source said. Not on some friendly reunion tip, on some strategy tip. Think of it like chess grandmasters reviewing old openings before a tournament. Another piece of unconfirmed but persistent chatter. Rakim didn't just appear for a symbolic photo. Word on the street is that he's already laid a verse. That's right, Rakim allegedly has bars locked and loaded. Imagine that for a second. In an era where most high-profile rap beefs devolve into memes, subtweets, and playful trolling, Kendrick Lamar potentially recruiting one of the most revered lyricists in history for an actual verse flips the entire table. It's no longer a generational debate. It's no longer new school versus old school. It's a cultural tribunal. Drake, for all his power, is a student of the game. He respects Rakim. He's referenced him before, acknowledged him in interviews, and even credited early New York MCs for shaping the blueprint of modern rap. That's what makes this so devastating. It's one thing to spar with a rival. It's another to watch one of your idols seemingly step onto the battlefield, just not on your side. At Real Rap Talk posted a thread breaking it down. Kendrick represents precision, control, and cultural respect. Rakim represents origin, credibility, and technical mastery. Together, they neutralize almost every criticism people aim at lyricism today to technical. No, Rakim made technique cool to abstract. Okay? No, Kendrick turned poetry into platinum plaques. To regional, together they span coasts and generations. In other words, they become an unstoppable force, not just in music, and in cultural narrative. Meanwhile, strange things began happening in Drake's orbit. OVO producers, normally active online, went completely silent. One engineer who had been teasing a crazy summer on IG suddenly wiped all music-related posts. Toronto nightlife regulars claimed Drake wasn't at any of his usual spots this weekend. The only public sighting was a grainy clip from a luxury SUV, tinted windows rolled up. The man inside looking down at his phone, jaw set tight. Fans on Reddit speculated this is either the calm before Drake drops the most calculated response of his career, or it's the moment he rethinks whether responding is even worth it. And that's the deeper tension here. Not just what will happen, but what should happen. Because when legends step into a battle, the rules change. Hip-hop has always lived at the intersection of competition and respect. You battle to prove yourself, but you also respect the lineage that built the arena you're fighting in. When Rakim's name enters the battlefield, it forces everyone, even the fiercest competitors, to pause. At the Culture HQ wrote, if Drake responds with aggression, he risks disrespecting a figure the culture reveres like family. If he stays quiet, he risks looking defeated. It's the ultimate trap. And Kendrick knows it. He's always played the long game. This isn't about petty insults. This is about positioning, forcing your opponent into a corner where every move costs something. Another subtle layer surfaced when fans revisited Kendrick's past interviews. In one from years ago, he was asked which MC he studied the most. Without hesitation, he said, Rakim, that's the god. He taught me how to think beyond bars, how to treat this like architecture, not just entertainment. So this move, not random, it's a callback, a full circle moment. The student calls on the master not to hide behind him, but to remind everyone where the foundation truly lies. Streaming algorithms even picked up on the storm. By midday, Spotify's most searched list featured Rakim alongside Kendrick and Drake. As new fans dove into a discography many had only heard referenced in passing. YouTube saw a 300% spike in views on old live Rakim performances. The cultural appetite wasn't just about beef anymore, it was about education. People were learning, rediscovering, reevaluating. The narrative shifted from who's winning to what does winning even mean? By late afternoon, analysts began speculating about the financial ripple effects. Would labels start pulling marketing plans? Would sponsors hesitate to attach themselves to either side until the dust settled? Could this even affect award seasons, festival bookings, collaborative projects? Because make no mistake, when battles reach this level of cultural magnitude, everything connected to the artists begins to wobble. But for now, one truth is unavoidable. Kendrick Lamar just changed the entire tone of modern hip-hop warfare. And he didn't raise his voice. He didn't leak a verse. He just stood next to the right man at the right time and let silence do what diss tracks rarely can: scare the entire game into paying attention. Hashtag hip-hop legends, hashtag KDOT moves, hashtag RAKIM returns. Hashtag Drake vs. Kendrick. Hashtag the culture decides, hashtag respect the architects. Hashtag battle for Lugosi by the time night fell. This wasn't just a story anymore. It had turned into a cultural event. The kind of seismic shift that every generation of hip-hop eventually gets once or twice in its lifetime. In every city, from New York to Los Angeles, from Toronto to London, clubs, studios, and even college radio stations were locked in, dissecting every move, every frame, every rumor like scripture. One of the most viral clips came from a late-night podcast where three veteran DJs debated the meaning of Kendrick standing next to Rakim without saying a single word. DJ at Spin Cycle said, "You don't call Rakim into the picture unless you're making a statement. And this ain't a feature play. This is chess. This is Kendrick saying, I know where the crown was built and I'm bringing the architect with me." Meanwhile, younger fans, many of whom had grown up on Drake's melodic dominance, were left confused, even shaken. Some of them had never truly understood Rakim's influence. But now, overnight, they were deep diving through 1980s and 1990s classics, tweeting out lines they had just discovered like they were new leaks. One fan wrote, "Just listen to Eric B. is president for the first time. I get it now. Drake might have hits, but this feels like finding the blueprint for all of this." And that's where the emotional weight started to shift. Suddenly, this wasn't just about who could drop the wittiest bar, the hardest insult, or the cleverest double entendre. This was about respect, about lineage, about who had the right to stand on certain stages and call themselves king. Back in Toronto, the silence from Drake's camp had become deafening. No cryptic tweets, no IG story with a sly emoji, no subtle verse preview on a random producer's live session. Just nothing. And in the culture, nothing speaks louder than silence, especially when the whole world is waiting for you to say something. Insiders started whispering about strategy meetings. One industry reporter claimed on Spaces that OVO had flown in several heavyweight ghostwriters, not necessarily to write for Drake, but to brainstorm angles, ways to respond without violating hip-hop's unwritten code of respect toward legends like Rakim. That's where things got complicated. Because attacking Kendrick was one thing. He's a peer, a rival, fair game. But taking aim, even indirectly, at Rakim, that's nuclear. That's the kind of move that could permanently fracture Drake's relationship with a huge portion of the culture. At the Rap Bible summed it up perfectly in a tweet that went viral. "This isn't a beef anymore. This is Kendrick moving the goalposts, then setting them on fire. Then handing the ashes to Rakim and saying, hold this. How do you respond without losing?" As midnight approached, fans were glued to every possible channel for updates. Twitch streams were analyzing waveforms of leaked audio, trying to confirm if a mysterious snippet actually contained Rakim's voice. Discord servers filled with thousands of users discussing hypotheticals. What if Drake calls in Nas or Jay-Z to balance the weight? What if he flips it and praises Rakim to neutralize the tension? What if he drops out entirely, conceding without ever admitting defeat? Each scenario carried risks. Each move could either preserve Drake's image or damage it beyond repair. And every hour of silence made it harder to control the narrative. Meanwhile, Kendrick's demeanor was the same as always. Calm, detached, almost surgical. He wasn't tweeting victory laps. He wasn't posting memes. He He wasn't feeding the fire. He had simply created the conditions, and now the entire genre was burning on its own. Hip-hop scholars, yes, actual academics even began weighing in. One professor at NYU tweeted, "If this unfolds the way it appears to, we're witnessing not just a battle between artists, but a rare moment of generational convergence. A living legend lending weight to a current titan in a way that redefines legitimacy in the genre." And it wasn't just rap insiders paying attention anymore. Variety, Rolling Stone, even CNN ran headlines speculating about the collaboration. Spotify reportedly prepared server contingencies in case the rumored Kendrick x Rakim track dropped and shattered streaming records. TikTok was flooded with edits, some comedic, others reverent, treating the pairing like an Avengers-level crossover. By 3 a.m., an unverified screenshot began circulating. A private group chat of top producers discussing an emergency mastering session scheduled for dawn. Fans went feral. Was this the track? Was the mythical Kendrick-Rakim alliance about to actually manifest in audio form? The timing couldn't have been more poetic. Because Drake, the man known for always being one step ahead in rollout strategy, now looked like the one forced to react. And that's the genius of Kendrick's play. He didn't drop a bar, he didn't announce a song, he didn't even say Drake's name. He simply positioned himself next to a figure whose presence carries more weight than 90% of the verses ever written. And in doing so, he shifted the gravitational center of the entire conversation. Some fans started using a new hashtag crowned by association, pointing out that in hip-hop, credibility isn't just earned through personal skill, but through who stands with you when the stakes rise. And when Rakim stands with you, it doesn't just look like support. It looks like an anointing. A viral TikTok captured it perfectly in a caption. "This ain't beef anymore. This is ceremony." As dawn approached for a second time in this unfolding saga, everyone, fans, critics, insiders, even casual listeners, felt the same thing. Anticipation mixed with awe. They weren't just waiting for music. They were waiting to see whether hip-hop itself was about to undergo another tectonic shift. The kind that rewrites rules, rearranges power, and leaves everyone wondering how they ever thought the game was. #KDOT and RAKIM, hashtag hip-hop history, hashtag DrakeWatch225, hashtag beef or baptism, hashtag lines in the sand, hashtag culture before charts, hashtag the game will remember. By the time the sun rose over Los Angeles, the entire industry was running on caffeine, adrenaline, and speculation. Nobody had slept. Group chats were alive. Label execs were awake before their kids, scrolling like interns. Radio host Hood signed off at midnight, came back on air at 6 a.m. just to keep the momentum going. Because something felt imminent, like the air before a storm, heavy with static, ready to crack. At 9:13 a.m. PST, an alert went out, not from Kendrick, not from Rakim, not even from anyone directly tied to TDE or PG Lang. It came from a verified engineer who simply tweeted, "History doesn't wait for perfect timing. It waits for brave hands." Within minutes, hashtag brave hands started trending. Fans knew what it meant. Not confirmation, not denial, but signal. A whisper in all caps. Something was coming. Meanwhile, Toronto woke up to headlines splashed across every blog, every news aggregator, every fan-made thread. Drake's silence continues. Theories multiplied. Some said he was crafting the perfect rebuttal. Others claimed he was furious internally, not with Kendrick, but with his own team for letting it get this far. A few even argued Drake might pull a classic chess move, step out gracefully, frame it as respect for the culture, and avoid permanent damage. But deep down, everyone knew this wasn't just a choice between response or retreat. This was a cultural reckoning. At 11:45 a.m., something new hit YouTube. A black screen. It's 18 seconds long, no title, no description, just a static audio bed of vinyl crackle and a faint, almost unnoticeable voice at the end. Rakim's unmistakable tone saying, This ain't for them. This is for the throne. 18 seconds. No beat, no verse, no hook, yet it was enough to break the internet in half. Reaction videos started stacking by the hundreds. Academics started writing hot takes, like research abstracts. Even at Billboard, quietly tweeted if what we think is happening is actually happening. We are witnessing the fastest narrative shift in modern music history. And while the world waited, something else happened. Something quiet but devastating. Playlists began to shift. Algorithms that once fed Drake into every other R&B rap queue now started surfacing classic Rakim tracks. Deep Kendrick cuts, collaborative, histories. It was like the machines themselves sensed the cultural tide turning and adjusted to keep up. By late afternoon, a leaked group photo began to circulate. It showed Kendrick, Rakim, and several iconic producers, names too big to fake. Men whose fingerprints are on platinum plaques across decades. The caption, reportedly from an assistant on set, read simply, "Legends only." Within hours, every streaming platform trended toward one question: was the track already done? Or worse, from Drake's perspective, was it already scheduled, locked, and ready to hit midnight like a hammer? The fear wasn't about losing a lyrical exchange. Drake could go bar for bar with the best of them when he wanted. The fear was losing the frame. The fear was waking up in a world where every conversation in hip-hop no longer asked who's next, but who still matters. By evening, more signs emerged. Bjiling's website went dark except for a single blinking cursor. No message, no music, just the visual equivalent of a heartbeat. Patient, intentional, terrifying in its consolve. And its silence, Rakim posted once. Not a verse, not even a reference to the beef. Just an image. An empty mic stand with a crown dangling from it. 1 million likes in 30 minutes. No caption, no explanation. Every quote tweet screamed the same thing. It's over. It's back in industry. Corridors, people started talking openly about Drake's options shrinking. It wasn't about dropping music anymore. It was about optics. Even a phenomenal diss at this point might read like desperation. A great boxer swinging after the bell. And if he ignored it, people would call it surrender. But there was one path left. The hard one. The one that risked ego for longevity, reconciliation. A move that no one would expect, and yet everyone would respect, around midnight. A quiet but verified update leaked from a respected journalist. Drake's team has reached out. Private meeting, no cameras, no posts. Culture first. Nobody knew if it was true, but for a moment, the temperature shifted. Because here's the twist. Sometimes the final strike isn't about destruction. It's about elevation. By calling in Rakim, Kendrick didn't just win. He reminded the world what hip-hop is and who built the foundation these modern kings now stand on. And maybe, just maybe, that reminder hit harder than any diss ever could. The battle, as the internet had framed it, wasn't over. But the conversation had changed, permanently. Suddenly, it wasn't about who had the better hook, or the sharper bars, or the bigger first week numbers. It was about lineage. It was about legacy. It was about time, respect, and the hands that built the kingdom. And that's how Kendrick Lamar, without shouting, without spamming, without memes or leaks, shifted an entire culture by standing still next to a legend and letting the weight of history do the talking by sunrise. Every corner of the hip-hop world was buzzing, exhausted but united around a single, humbling truth. Sometimes the loudest war cry is silence. Sometimes the hardest punch is a handshake with the man who taught you how to throw it. #KDOT. #Rakim. #HipHopEvolved. #Respect the Architects. #History happened. #Drake. V's Kendrick. #Culture over charts number. The throne shifted. #Legacy moves. And there you have it. The culture just witnessed a seismic shift. A once-in-a-generation moment where history, respect, and raw strategy collided in real time. Kendrick Lamar didn't just play the game, he changed it. and with Rakim standing beside him. Stakes have never been higher. But now it's over to you. Do you think K should clap back with a nuclear response? Or should he step aside, protect the legacy he's built, and let this chapter close with grace? Is this the dawn of a new era, where kings hand crowns instead of throwing punches? Or is the biggest war in hip-hop still waiting for the next bell to ring? Drop your take below. We're reading every single one. Comment with your hottest theories, your boldest predictions, even your wildest conspiracies. And don't forget, if you live for the culture, for the bars, for the moments that make the whole industry stop breathing for just a second, smash that like, tap subscribe, and turn those notifications on. You do not want to miss what's coming next. Because if this was the final strike, what happens when someone decides it's not final at all? Stay locked in. The war may have gone quiet, but hip-hop never sleeps. Hashtag hip-hop history. Hashtag KDOT. Hashtag AOT. Hashtag RAKIM. Hashtag DRIZZY. Hashtag respect the goats. Hashtag the throne shifted. Hashtag culture over clout. Hashtag stay tuned. Hashtag next move matters. At Kendrick Lamar. At Drake. At Rakim.